If you're moving to Atlanta and you're looking for a neighborhood that is charming, walkable, livable, great restaurants, live music, you're definitely going to want to consider Virginia Highlands. It is the most walkable neighborhood in Atlanta. Hey, this is Parker. I've lived in Atlanta for over 30 years now, and Virginia Highlands has always been one of my favorite places. Back in the 90s, my wife lived there, as did a bunch of my friends, and I've spent a considerable amount of time in Virginia Highlands, so it's got a very warm place in my heart. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief history of Virginia Highlands. Then we're going to take you on a tour of the commercial districts that give the neighborhood so much of its charm and character. Then we're going to take a look at some of the beautiful houses there and talk about property values. Let's get going. So where is Virginia Highlands? Virginia Highlands is part of the city of Atlanta, and it's located just a few miles northeast of downtown Atlanta, right on the edge of Piedmont Park in Midtown Atlanta. It's not only one of Atlanta's most charming in-town neighborhoods, it's also one of the most convenient locations in Atlanta. It's close to every place you want to be in town. Piedmont Park, the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, the Fox Theater, Georgia Tech, the Beltline, Ponce City Market, and more. It's also a quick drive to some of Atlanta's best shopping in the Tony area of Buckhead. Virginia Highlands is also directly adjacent to Emory University, which makes it a very popular choice, obviously, for the students and the employees of Emory University. If you're interested in learning about all the other great neighborhoods around Emory University, please check the description box below and I'll link one of our best videos. So just so you know, the official name is Virginia Highland. You'll notice I tend to pluralize it, as do most people, and call it Virginia Highlands, or VAHI for short. VAHI gets its name from the intersection of Virginia Avenue and North Highland, which is the main crossroads of the neighborhood with the biggest retail district. We'll get back to that later on our tour. Virginia Highlands is now considered an urban area, but when it was first developed, it was a streetcar suburb of Atlanta. VAHI was first developed in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Many of the existing homes are classic 1920s and 30s bungalows. The architecture is a major part of what makes Virginia Highlands unique, and most of the infill houses, though much larger, keep within the same architectural styles. Virginia Highlands really feels like a village in a big city, and that's because it was built around all these commercial districts, which were originally stops on the trolley line. So let's take a tour of these four villages in Virginia Highlands. They basically run along Highland Avenue. On the north end, the crossroad is going to be East Rock Springs, and on the south end, the crossroad is going to be Ponce de Leon. We will start on Highland Avenue at East Rock Springs, which is considered the dividing line between Morningside and Virginia Highland. And we're going to head south on Highland Avenue about a quarter mile until we reach Morningside Village. Here we are in that gray zone where some people will tell you they live in Virginia Highlands and others will call it Morningside. Morningside Village has a great selection of shops and restaurants, including the Family Dog, where well-behaved dogs are always welcome. There are several other restaurants, a fine wine shop, 2 clothing boutiques, a veterinarian, and also a spa. But the real star of the show in Morningside Village is Alon's Gourmet Bakery. Alon's has been a mainstay in Virginia Highlands for 30 years now, with freshly baked breads, European-style cakes and pastries, fine cheese, soups, sandwiches, and gourmet takeout. Alon's is truly one of my favorite places in all of Atlanta. Continuing south on Highland Avenue, our next village is at the intersection of Amsterdam Avenue, which you can follow west right into the heart of Piedmont Park. The village at Amsterdam features Thai and sushi, a locally owned coffee house, a post office, a taco place, some of Atlanta's best barbecue, and also Highland Pet Supply, which is the oldest and definitely the coolest pet store in the ATL. Heading south on Highland Avenue again, we come to the crossroads at Virginia Avenue, which is the heart and soul of Virginia Highlands. If you take Virginia Avenue west, you end up on 10th Street, which is the southern end of Piedmont Park. The village here is the largest and busiest, with about a dozen bars and restaurants, a terrific bookstore and another coffee house, Right across the street is Moe's & Joe's, which is an Atlanta institution. Open since 1947, Moe's & Joe's has proudly maintained their hole-in-the-wall status and also sells more Pabst Blue Ribbon beer than any other restaurant in America. Right next door is another great hamburger joint called George's, a bike shop, fashion boutiques, and also Highland Hardware, which has been open since 1978. Right next door is Atlanta's oldest operating fire station. Fire station number 19 was built in 1924 in the bungalow style and is currently undergoing renovations. A brief detour down Virginia Avenue takes us to John Howell Park, which is one of the many parks tucked back in the Virginia Highlands neighborhood. At John Howell Park, you'll find plenty of space for walking, beach volleyball, and there's also a huge playground for the kids. Before we get to the last stop on Highland Avenue, I just wanted to mention that if you're thinking of making the move to Atlanta, please feel free to reach out. All my contact information is in the box below. Kaboom! Continuing south along Highland Avenue, you're going to pass the old school Ace Hardware, and we'll end up at the intersection of Highland and St. Charles Place, just north of Ponce de Leon. This part of the village was hit hard by COVID, and there are currently several empty storefronts. But Atkins Park Pub is still going strong. They opened in 1922, and legend has it that Atkins Park has the longest operating liquor license in Atlanta. And if you like live music, there's Limerick Junction Irish Pub, Blind Willie's Blues Club, and the Dark Horse Tavern, all of which feature live bands almost every night of the week. This brings us to an important point. The demographics of Virginia Highland have always kind of skewed on the young side. It's always been a big draw for young people, the kind of crowd that is, after college but before marriage and kids. Now, it is not as young as it used to be, and that's primarily because the property values have gone up so much. I mentioned before, I had a lot of friends that had rentals there back in the 90s. And, that was back when you could get a rental pretty cheap, and that is no longer the case in Virginia Highlands, unfortunately. A lot of young people do live in the rental units in the neighborhood, but a lot of them drive from other parts of Atlanta to come and enjoy the scene in Virginia Highlands. Every year, Virginia Highlands hosts a number of neighborhood festivals. In the spring, there's a terrifically fun event called Porch Fest, where all the local bands, from teenage punks to graybeard dad rockers, perform live on the porches and front yards all around the neighborhood. June brings Summerfest, and last year they added Winterfest with a jingle jog, a holiday parade, an artist market, and more. Now let's talk about property values. As you might expect, Virginia Highlands does not come cheap. The median sales price is just over $1 million, and the average price per square foot is somewhere around $450, so it's a very high budget neighborhood. Most of the homes we see here tend to sell right at the list price, and the early part of the year things were selling slightly above list price, but in the last few months as interest rates have gone up, we're starting to see things sell more like 96-97% of list price. That being said, you can still get some sneaky sales here and there. There was a house that sold recently around $570,000. It only had one bathroom. It was kind of small. It was right on Briarcliff Road, which is a little bit busy. Just for point of comparison, as I said, the least expensive home that sold in the last 3 months was right around $570,000. And the most expensive home sold in the last 3 months was just over $3 million. So I hope you found this an enjoyable and enlightening overview of one of Atlanta's best neighborhoods, Virginia Highland. As I said before, if you're interested in learning about other great neighborhoods right around Emory University, please check the description box below. We'll link one of our best videos there. My contact information is also down there, so if you're thinking of making the move to Atlanta, as always, feel free to reach out, give me a call, send me a text. Love to talk to you. Thanks.